What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. My name is Scott Barker, run revenue and partnerships at Sales Hacker, and I'll be moderating this discussion. Thanks for hanging out with us for the next hour. I know we're all super busy, so we appreciate you hanging out. What we are talking about today is action versus assessment and how to coach through the entire pipeline. And we've got some heavy hitters for this discussion, which I'm excited about. But before I do introduce them both, which they barely need introductions, but a few housekeeping matters. So number one, all Sales Hacker webinars are recorded. I usually get about 10 to 15 emails of people saying, hey, where's that recording? It's coming. It just takes us about 24 hours to get it out to you, but it's on its way. And then number two is, if you've ever been on a Sales Hacker webinar before, we like these to be interactive, right? The whole reason we do this is for the community. So if you have relevant questions, please ask them throughout, and I'll do my best, if they are relevant, to kind of weave them in throughout. And we do have about 10, 15 minutes at the end for a little bit of Q&A as well. So get involved, tell us your name, title, company, and your question. But we've got that out of the way. I want to introduce my guests. First up, we have the infamous Keenan. Keenan, what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
What's up, baby? Ready to roll. Yeah.
Ready to rock.
Yo, look at big
There it is. We got the double product placement. I get the Chorus water bottle here. Look at this, eh? I love it. All right, so for maybe the few of you out there who don't know who this man is, Keenan is a best-selling author, which he's got his new book out, Gap Selling. Definitely check it out. I'm hoping my copy's in the mail. Did it just get lost, Keenan, or what? But also the CEO of A Sales Guy Consulting, Training, and Recruiting. He's also a keynote speaker, Forbes contributor. This man does it all, and excited to dive into this topic with you today. And then next up, we have Joe Caprio, VP of Sales over at chorus.ai. And previous to that, I know you spent almost 5 years in sales leadership over at Insight Squared. And in my eyes, you know, one of the smartest revenue minds in the software space today. So very excited to have you. And Joe, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited, Scott. I've been dying to get on a show with Keenan here. So
oh, you have, huh?
Yeah, let's hope I don't bomb here, Keenan.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm excited because I know as we were doing some prep for this isn't going to be your typical, hey, we're all going to get along webinar. We have some conflicting viewpoints on a few things, which I think always makes for entertainment. It actually makes us all a little bit better because we forced to step our game up. But here's our loose agenda. And, you know, with these two gentlemen on here, we may go down a few different rabbit holes, but here's the loose agenda that we're going to try and hold ourselves to. Number one, we're going to go through just kind of some best-in-class coaching. What does that look like? From there, how are we handling competitors? How are we handling objections? And then at the end, that's all well and great, but how do we actually build a repeatable, scalable, predictable pipeline? So that's what we're going to be running through. But I want to quickly hit on something before we dive into it. And we're going to do two quick poll questions, get the audience engaged. And I'm just frankly curious about the answer. So number one, we're going to ask, are you hitting quota or not right now? So let's launch that poll and see these results. And we might have to take them with a grain of salt too, you know. We'll see. All right, we'll leave that at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Scott, it wouldn't let me vote, but put one more at yes, please.
Got it. All right. Interesting. Okay, so we got some honest people.
Hey, that almost maps exactly to what CSIO Insights has.
Really?
Yep.
What is CSO CSO Insights say?
They say 64% in 2000, I believe 18 or 17. So people didn't make quota. Yep.
Wow. So yeah, so those if we've got no at 61%. So 61% are not hitting quota. Yes at 39%. Super interesting. Yeah, definitely in line with a lot of the data that's out there. And then the second question that really follows that up is, how many of you feel you are being coached well? And we'll do a yes or no question to that. We'll launch that one here. Any predictions on this one, guys? Keenan?
I'm going to say 35, 40% say they're getting coached. Oh, well, 25%.
25%. Joe?
Yeah, I'd actually go with about a third as well.
Okay. Let's check it out. 3, 2, 1. Stop the poll now. Oh! He's got it. 1% off. Well done. Well done. All right. So we've got, how many of you feel you are coached well? We have 76% saying no, and we have 24%, just one away from Keenan's guess, saying that they are coached well. So about less than a quarter of people out there think they're being coached well. So
what would be dope?
I don't know.
What would be dope was we'd have been able to sort of tie those together. See the people who made quota, if they said they're being coached well.
Yeah. Well, we'll wait for Zoom to come up with the new capabilities of that kind of polling. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see which ones are correlated for sure. Okay, that's super interesting. So to me, that shows not very many people are hitting quota, and most people aren't being coached well. So the system seems to be broken. So Keenan, I'm going to flip this over to you now, and can you just kind of set the stage for us and talk to us in your eyes what's broken in sales coaching today? Because clearly something's wrong here.
I think there's a couple of things. I think the first thing is what is defined as coaching, right? Too many people think coaching is judgmental evaluation. So the thing that I really try to use is from coaching isn't judgmental. It's not to say you're bad or you're good. Let me rephrase it performance-wise. It's bad or good. So people confuse performance evaluations and performance reviews as coaching, right? There should be no judgment in coaching as to the output. There's the way to look at it, right? Judging should not address the output. Performance evaluation judges the output. The concept of, that's the number one, right? They're too busy thinking, judging your being at quota, judging, your output and your performance as coaching and trying to fix the performance in coaching. Performance through coaching is not really coaching. And the second one is it lacks observable moments, right? So no sales organizations do a horrible job in trying to understand or set up all the observable moments required to be a good coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you got to extract this idea of don't always focus on the outcome. So what are you then focused on when you are coaching?
The observable moments. So if you want to coach, you need to set up and do observable moments, and you want to assess the behaviors, right? That's what we're looking to coach, the behaviors that go behind the outcome. So Carol Dweck wrote a book and has a concept called mastery orientation versus performance orientation, right? Or goal orientation. And so what most people do is they focus on the goal orientation, both the salesperson and the manager. They're all focused on the goals. She says, no. We're going to focus on the mastery component. So one of the best analogies I've ever used is baseball, right? The goal orientation is, hey, Keenan, you're not hitting 350. Hey, Keenan, you only got 10 home runs. Hey, Keenan, your on-base percentage is 35%. That's awful. You need to get more hits. You need to do this. Mastery orientation says, slow your roll. I'm horrible at hitting a curveball, so we're going to work on identifying, picking up the spin of the ball out of the hand of the pitcher. We're going to your on-base percentage is awful, so we're going to work on being more patient in the batter's box, which therefore means we're going to get you comfortable with taking a pitch. We're gonna work on your ability to assess the game, to guess what that type of pitch that pitch is gonna throw, so you can anticipate the pitch better. We're gonna work on all the mastery orientation pieces, not the goal pieces, and we're gonna find observable moments to allow us to do that.
I love that. That's a really good way to reframe it, and it's almost like pulling it back, right, and looking at it on these smaller sections of it. It's too big of lofty of a goal to be like, hey, we need to create more opportunities, or you need to, close more deals. You need to pull that way back and be like, what are the observable moments that make up that greater goal?
Yeah, it's that, but it's not just the size of the goal. It's what it takes to get to the goal. Right? Like if I learn, rather than telling me I need to improve my batting percentage, and I go in there and I go in the batting cage all day and I just keep hitting balls, as opposed to saying I'm going to learn how to identify the rotation of the ball as it leaves the pitcher's hands. By default, if I get good and I work on mastering that, then by default my average is going to go up.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? It's getting to the executional elements. Plus, if I don't do it once, if I'm trying to master and I don't get it, I don't look like I failed because I just keep trying. But if I don't get 350, I failed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And their studies talk a lot about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, Joe, are you seeing the same thing at Chorus? Your team probably better than 95% of organizations out there have a really solid line into what a ton of organizations are doing as part of their coaching programs. Are you seeing that it's broken as well today?
Yeah, I think it's funny. A lot of folks will ask me, like, what am I hearing on the calls? And so at its base, like definition, we record sales calls and transcribe them and analyze them and help you find the patterns. What do your top reps do? What do your bottom reps do? What do your buyers say? What do your close loss stops say? And then use that to kind of figure out like what works, and then use what works as a backbone of your training. And so a lot of people will come to me and say, you're sitting on this treasure trove of data. Why don't you start producing stats? Like how many questions to win a deal, or what's the ideal talk to listen ratio? And I kind of laugh. I'm like, what's more interesting to me is actually what the most like fastest growing and most successful companies in the world are doing to invest in skill development, more so than like how many questions their sales rep asks on the phone. And so, yeah, man, like I've been with the company for about 1.5 years now, and I've like devoted my time to interviewing our biggest and our most successful or publicly traded customers. And yeah, I'm seeing a pattern here. Ask yourself this, like when you build your operating model for 2019, when you built your operating model, what did you plan for ramp time for a new hire? And, what did you model for quota attainment across the team? Because like industry benchmarks are telling us to model a 6 or 7 month ramp time and 70 to 80% quota attainment. And I don't mean that your reps average 70 or 80% quota attainment. I mean, if you have a team of salespeople whose, cumulative quota is $1 million, you're modeling that you'll get, 70, 80% of that $1 million. And so you're planning to miss your collective quota by a third. And the weird thing is, like we're just accepting it. Like we're just planning that it takes 7 months to teach someone how to do the job, and then at that point they'll do 70% of the job. So yeah, I think we've kind of, as an industry, maybe moved on from coaching and said let's just plan to fail or plan to limp along at like 3/4 speed rather than addressing the problem head on.
I don't think they know how to coach either. You got to have something to coach to. What are you going to coach to?
Well, Keenan, it's funny. I always tell the story. Like I hired my BDRs right out of college, or maybe like a year experience. They chose finance and then thought it was boring, and now they want to try sales. And so I hire people that are relatively early in their career, and if they're good, they're an AE by the end of the year. And if they hit their number in their first year as an AE, they're a mid-market AE or they're a manager, and you end up with like, I'm not ageist, but you end up with people that have less than 5 years experience in the real world who have never been taught and have never been properly coached. And then we're kind of sitting back and saying, that's the role of the front. The manager should be doing the coaching. And it's like, they don't even know how to coach. They've never been coached. Mm-hmm. So I do think that we're kind of like at a tipping point where we're seeing more folks with executive titles on the sales enablement team. We're seeing companies hire enablement and trainer faster. We're seeing guys like Keenan just absolutely blow up because maybe a company like Chorus, we're about 100 people right now. Maybe I'm not going to stand up a full-on enablement team, so I'm going to outsource and I'm going to bring in experts to help me with it. But I do think it's broken, and I do think the market's starting to pay attention because the reward is there if you fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my question then is, so we have these young kids, 5 years out of college, right? They're high performers. They're now maybe a sales manager. And how can we enable them to not only observe these coachable moments, right? Like, to use Keenan's example, maybe you can, as the sales manager with 5 years experience, understand, okay, Bob can't hit that fastball because he can't do curveballs. But how can you then get him to learn that you need to coach against the way he's throwing that ball? You know what I mean? How do you enable him to do that and quickly diagnose that and see the problem and then coach against it?
So I'm not going to stand here and pitch Chorus software. I'm not selling Chorus, but I do believe that reviewing actual calls, reviewing real scenarios. And 5 years ago, before the technology was there, what I would do is I'd cut my team in half and have half the team on the floor doing a call blitz and the other half the team in a conference room, like live listening. You know, it was thinking phones, now Fuse had like a barge feature or like a whisper feature. And so I'd have half the team live listening to a real call while the other half was out making cold calls. Or anytime I got on a sales call, I'd send, most of the reps into a conference room and have them dial in too, stay on mute. And I'd say, oh, that's a sales engineer. He's just listening in. And they would just like live listen to me do a call. I'd run in after and say, you see what I did there? And so I think what I'm trying to say is the alternative to generic, vanilla, like broad strokes coaching where you're just preaching and lecturing, it has to be replaced with like real world examples. So on this specific call, they said this and you reacted incorrectly. Let's talk about how to do it right. Keenan calls them observable moments. I'm talking about being real with your training. Like the way we train people right now, let's be really, really clear. Industry benchmark is telling us it takes 40 hours to produce a single hour of real classroom like training. So you have to put in about a week's worth of work to build the deck and the collateral and like practice the session. So for you to give an hour of training, you invest 40 hours to build that content. How many hours are your new hires in a classroom? Like really, maybe week one, you load them up and they're in there for like 5-6 hours a day. But by the time week 2, week 3, week 4 rolls around, what are you doing? You're saying like, go sit next to Kat. She's been here the longest. She's the best. Listen to her calls and you'll just absorb. It's like latchkey training or like training through osmosis. And the reality is we have a benchmark 25% win rate in tech and a 30% no-show rate. So there's like a 50% chance that next call Kat's on is worth a shit. And so now you have your brand new employee you just spent a fortune recruiting in here getting trained, and all they're really doing is sitting on the line while your veteran rep suffers another no-show and starts filling the dead air by complaining about everything else that's broken at your company. The territories are messed up. The comp plans are unfair. And this is training. Like this is how you're training your salespeople. So observable moments, game tape, like whatever you want to call it. If your idea is I'll lecture for an hour and then send them out on the floor and let them pick up what they pick up, then you're not actually doing any real training.
So I think it's important to distinguish something here. I don't believe training and coaching are the same thing.
Okay.
I understand.
What's your definition of both?
So coaching is one-on-one, customized, and the result of me watching you execute a particular task and coaching you to do that task again and change the way you do it. That's coaching. Training includes knowledge, and coaching also assumes that you have the basic knowledge and understanding of what it is you're engaged in. You can't coach a golfer if they don't understand the rules of golf. You train them on how to play golf first, right? Then once they understand how to play, then you coach them to get better. So same thing here. Coaching and training can be used interchangeably. Thank you. They can be used interchangeably, but they are not the same thing, right? And coaching relies, again, specifically on the observations of the coach and the feedback from the coach to the coachee and what they just did. So, I borrowed half of my coaching methodology, which is called observe, describe, prescribe, absorb, and apply, I adopted part of that from being a ski instructor. So I'm a level 2 PSIA certified ski instructor with PSIA, Professional Ski Instructors Association. And in order to get that, there was no joke. Like I had to go through some serious training. Like level 2, it's like the bar exam. 50% of the people don't get it their first time. Level 3, like 10% get it the first time. You got to keep taking it over. It's hard. And one of the things that we're testing on was called movement analysis, right? And so to be a great ski instructor, you literally have to watch them ski first. Movement analysis, and you have to assess how are they initiating the turn, how are they carving the turn, how are they finishing the turn, and there are 4 elements to it. There's the fore aft, there's the foot-to-foot pressure, there's the tipping and turning, and there's the rotation. And they will literally look at me and say, okay, Keenan, that guy on the hill, I want turn shape and I want rotation. Go. What do you see? And I got to tell them what I see and be able to back it up, because once I see it right, then I can go to them and say, okay, let me show you what I'm going to change and why, right? There's the observe. Then I describe them what I see. Then I prescribe a different action. Then I check in and say, hey, do you understand what I'm saying? Are you absorbing what I'm giving you? And then apply it. And the apply takes the hardest time. So they apply it. I can see they absorbed it, but they applied it poorly. Here's some more coaching. Here's my observation. Here's my description. And there's your loop right there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so that whole methodology really hinges again on these managers prescribing the right and diagnosing the right things, right?
Yes.
If you're going and you're like, oh, his left foot is this way, but you're seeing it wrong because you're 5 years out of college and you don't really know how to do it, then you're actually going to be coaching
the wrong shit.
You're the complete wrong shit, and you're actually doing a disservice, and you could be making them worse.
Yep.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. So I think that's fundamentally where it's going wrong. Is a lot of the people that are tasked with either training or coaching don't know how to prescribe correctly.
Nope.
They
don't know how to observe correctly.
Yeah.
Like one of the reasons I haven't got my level 3 is so there's 3 components in the level 3 on all levels. The first, they are movement analysis, the actual skiing, and then it's called guest center teaching, or the teaching component. And each one is a day-long testing, right? I'm not worried about the teaching component, and I'm not worried about the skiing component. I mean, that's going to be hard, but the hardest one for me is movement analysis, because when you get to level 3, you have to take what's called a level 9 skier who can ski almost anything, right? And they're a really, really badass skier, and they're looking down, they look great, and they're like, okay, what's wrong? And I'm like, fuck if I know, they look awesome to me. and then the examiner slows it down. And he's like, notice how late he is from his foot-to-foot transition, or notice the slight shoulder turn to initiate the rotation at the hips. There's not enough separation. I'm like, okay, now I see it, but wow. Like, that is my biggest challenge is movement analysis at the highest level. So it's not just being able to prescribe it. If I can see it, I can prescribe it. Seeing it is sometimes the hardest part.
Keenan, imagine this same scenario, only you'd only been skiing for a year and a half, and no one ever taught you. You'd never taken a course. You'd never trained a single.
Yes.
You'd never been in a webinar. You'd never sharpened your public speaking skills. And then all of a sudden, you've got a team of 8 because you're one of the 30% of people who hit their number last year.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
30% of our reps hit their number. Everyone else is 60 to 80% to goal. And you take the 3 people to hit their number. One of them quit to go get paid more. One of them moves to the mid-market team, and the other one becomes your SMB manager. And then you say, hey, I know I've never taught you anything. I know I've never done any structural actual training.
Yeah.
I don't deliver a programmatic curriculum to you. And guess what? Now you have 8 people that are even more green than you, and you're going to teach them how to do it. What ends up happening, right? Like everyone's heard this before. Managers don't coach the rep, they coach the deal, right? Or they coach the deal, they don't coach the skill. And so I've got 8 direct reports, and they've each got 12, 15 opportunities a month, which takes 6 calls to close. And so I'm personally responsible for 500 to 1,000 phone calls a month. And what am I coaching? Getting off of this call, and I'm saying, hey man, don't pitch it that way again. Answer it this way from now on, and make sure you send that follow-up email. Gotta go, I'm on another call. And I'm just going call to call to call, giving 30 seconds of advice before I jump. And yes, like we are not actually doing any programmatic skill development. We are just fighting for our lives and trying to win the deal that's in front of us. Like we are going call to call to call. And as a result, like you're not actually seeing any structural improvement to your team.
Yep. Nailed it.
Absolutely. Okay. So I think we've done a great job at showcasing that the doom and gloom is real. Basically,
I promise you this is bad. I promise you you're in trouble.
So we did a good job with that. So, but to take some of that, and so we need to do a better job at training our managers. These young people that we're promoting, we need to be equipping them with the right skills to do their job effectively, which will have a trickle-down effect. And then focus on these observable moments. So, so this is where we're at. So let's go.
Okay,
next.
so real quick, one other thing I'd add to that.
Yeah.
One other thing I'd add to that. Change your hiring criteria for these managers. Just because they were the top rep doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the best manager, right? A manager is a leader. A manager is a coach, right? A manager is someone who can inspire. So, don't go run around thinking my top rep guy here knows how to coach. Look, there are a lot of, sorry, but it is what it is. There are a lot of nerds out there that can't play the game of baseball, but they will coach that baseball team to the World Series, right? Just because you can't actually execute it yourself doesn't mean that you aren't the best coach. So we got to stop thinking that the best performer is the best coach. There's not a single environment in the world where that plays out. Larry Bird, shitty coach. Magic Johnson, shitty coach. Seriously, how many head coaches in the NBA or in baseball were actually players? I bet it's less, or any sport, football, I bet it's less than, 50%, maybe it's 25%. And of the ones that are, how many of them were Hall of Fame, the best player? No, they weren't.
Yeah.
So we got to stop assuming that the best player makes the best coach.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Joe, what do you look for when you're promoting internally? If you're looking for, you've got a sales manager position open at Chorus, and you've got all your AEs, you've got one at 160% of quota, one that people look up to. Like, what are the things that you're looking at when you're promoting internally?
Yeah, I run a meritocracy. I just insist on it. I'm riddled with subconscious bias. We all are. And so I refuse to make I just don't think she gets it type judgment. And so I really run a meritocracy. And then what I like to do is I like to think of it as like a chess match that's half over. And the pieces that you still have on the board dictate your strategy and not the other way around. And so I'm constantly trying to hire and bring in new blood from the outside that can fill gaps. But what I'm more aware of is like the team that I have in place and where their strengths are and where their gaps are. And so back to the Chorus customer list, like we work with companies that are 50 people and below, and then we have publicly traded customers and everything in between. And what we're finding is that there is a bit of maturity model that takes hold. And so when you're a 25-person startup, like just fighting to prove product market fit, your scaffolding, your org chart, like your needs are different than when you're pre-IPO and like you have a different set of criteria. Like I have customers that come to me and say, hey, look, I'm a selling CEO and I'm about to hire my first sales rep. How do I transfer my tribal knowledge down? And then I have customers who come to me and say, dude, we just raised $100 million. I got to hire 100 people in the next 3 months. How do I get them up to speed? And the answer to the question is dramatically different based on where you are. The three things that I'm seeing actually make a difference here is it's like assigning ownership and accountability on three really simple questions that you can ask yourself. And it's what are you training this year, right? And top down, bottom up. Do you have a new product launch? Do you have what company initiatives need support and adaptation from your sales team? Or what are you seeing or interviewing the reps and hearing that they're bad at? So define your list of topics ahead of time and then schedule the format that works for you. Are you all in one building? You want to do film review? All the reps live from home and you want to, send them like LMS style surveys. So what are you teaching? How do you think your reps would best absorb that lesson? And then assign an owner and a date and create accountability for the knowledge transfer. And as long as you know what you need to train on, how your reps will absorb the info best, and then who's responsible for delivering the training, you're going to be leap years ahead of where you are now versus Like I'm not going to get up here and tell you what the perfect archetype is for a manager / trainer. Like, come on, man. Everybody's different. Everyone's product's different. Everyone's budget's different. Everyone's team's different. Just make a freaking decision, right? Just ask those 3 questions. What do you have to coach? What's the right format for your team? And then who's going to do it? And then schedule it out.
I like that. We can't all be Keenans, right? We were talking about that earlier.
Exactly.
It's difficult to.
Thank God. Your crazy ass world.
All right, let's skip ahead a little bit here. I just want to be cognizant of time, and I want to go to section 2. So this is all around, handling objections. So I know we have a few different ideas in this realm here. So Keaton, let's start with you. How should reps be handling objections in your eyes?
What I like to say, perfect with this slide, product-centric versus problem-centric. Look, first off, if you're selling problem-centric selling, which you should be, you don't answer the objection. You don't handle the objection. You make the client handle the objection. No matter what the objection is, it's not your job to overcome it. It's their job in a problem-centric selling world. So what I mean by that is if you are focused on problem-centric selling and they stop bringing up objections, those objections can only be to the solution, right? Whether it's the service or the product or whatever, or the price, right? So that means if you're problem-centric selling, you did not start talking about your product or service or features or functions or benefits until after you completely and utterly diagnosed the problem and got validation and confirmation of what the desired outcome was, right? So if you have diagnosed the current state problem and you have the accepted desired outcome or future state they're trying to achieve, and then they throw out an objection like, hey, you don't have this feature. Hey, this is too expensive, and it doesn't map to what they're trying to do, you say, wait, I'm confused. You said this is the problem. This is what you're trying to accomplish. This is what you want to happen. How does this impact that? I'm confused. And you sit back and shut up. And they'll go through and be like, okay, I guess it doesn't. It would have just been nice to have. So now they just told you it was a nice to have and they can take it off the plate. Or they'll explain something that you missed. And if it is material and it really will impact their desired outcome and there's no reason why they should change that desired outcome expectation, you say, oh, snap, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have gotten this fucking far. And thanks, but no thanks. Have a great day. Overcoming objections is not convincing someone not to buy something they need, right? It's overcoming objections is helping people understand that what they're doing in the decision process isn't in alignment with what they told you they need. And then you just need to help them correct themselves. So that's how you do it in problem-centric selling. Product-centric selling, I'm not even going to address. That's stupid.
I love it. And then, so that comes, in my eyes, what I'm hearing, that comes down to part of that is doing really strong discovery up front.
Yes.
Right? For that to be effective, which I think a lot of the times people skip over too quickly, or it gets lost in the SDR to AE handoff somewhere. And then that's when you get forced into this more, product-centric approach.
Yes.
Because you don't have all of the knowledge that you need.
Yes. That is the biggest problem with sales today is nobody does a decent discovery. And the only thing making it worse is everybody fucking thinks they do. Everybody thinks they do a good discovery. And it's a joke. It's a joke. And so, yes, that is the problem. So they end up being product-centric, and they lose the ability to influence the deal. Then they become, once you lose the ability to influence the deal, you're basically a glorified order taker.
Yep. Joe, you agree with what we're saying here with the problem-centric versus product-centric?
I do. I think I've had this personal experience where if I can actually convince myself, actually trick myself for a minute to pretend that I work for the prospect, right? I'm not a sales rep. I'm not trying to close a deal. My job is actually, I'm 1099. I'm a contract employee. I'm a consultant, and I'm coming in to fix your problem for you.
Yes.
If you can actually convince yourself to behave that way, you're not hearing objections. You're hearing like additional like data points that you have to address. So you're hearing additional stakeholders or additional problems or blockers as they might be. The second you start acting like a sales rep and like the second you start objection handling, it's over. Like you're in there for the money and they know it. So, we're at a point now too where the technology is starting to catch up and be able to create some form of like basic sentiment analysis. And so rate of pitch and, like volume and like how quickly you speak, right? Like those things do create trust or burn trust. And so it's ironic, like this is the advice we've been giving for years, right? Like reward and reverse, or what's the other one? Feel, felt, found, right? Like I understand how you feel. A lot of people felt the same way. What they found was, like, whatever it is, what we're trying to get our sales reps to do with these mnemonic devices is like, just stay calm in the cut, address it head on, answer the question, and then volley, answer their question and volley with another question. And if you really boil this advice down, it's like, don't lose your shit, like answer them, but then clarify the situation and make sure you still have a viable fit, right? Like no matter how you frame it, it's like, just listen to your prospect, address what they asked you, and then move on and continue the conversation. But don't objection handle, right? Don't objection handle. Like work through problems to find, like, to continue to find a solution for your partner.
Yeah. Think. This is what salespeople don't do, and with all due respect, most sales organizations don't do. They don't think. Listen, one of the things that allowed me to write this book, and when in full transparency, I'm most nervous about scaling my company, is almost every deal I've sold since I started this company is because after I do a discovery, they told me if my team could do a discovery like you, it was worth paying you. Like I don't really even know if they like anything I told them or sold them. They were like, "Holy shit, Keaton, you got me talking about stuff I didn't even know." And the reason I'm able to do that is twofold. Look, if this whole keep calm and be prepared, look, I'm confident, yes, but I don't prepare. I'm terrible. I'm not calm. I speak super fast. But what I'm really, really good at, and I don't know how to teach this, I can only give you the framework, and that's what gap selling does, is I ask really good questions, listen to the answers, and think at the exact same time. Literally think. So they drop something out, and I'm like, oh, they're in this industry, and these are the type of clients, and this is this, and this is like, and they go, oh, I know. And boom, I ask a question. And like, oh, that was a really good question. And then I listen to their answer, and I think, and I'm like, okay, here's the industry, here's the person, here's the pain, here's this, listen. Oh, boom, here's another question, right? I'm thinking. I'm not waiting for the next one. I'm not trying to prove anything. I am literally a blank slate. Like every time I wash it off, white, I ask a question, they start dotting my chest, and like, oh, there it is, boom. You have to think. Think. People can't think.
I like that. And to encourage that, I think, Joe, I think it's an interesting thought experiment for any of the sellers that are listening right now is, you're going to jump on your next discovery call or demo or whatever it is after you listen to it today. And I think a cool thought experiment would be exactly what you said, Joe. It's just pretend that you work for the company, that you are demoing or doing a discovery call. You are a consultant for them and nothing else. And reframe your brain to think that way. And it's going to help you do what Keenan said, because you're going to be just absorbing and listening and in this problem-solving mentality versus, whatever buyer's journey you're trying to push them down that you've been taught to.
Over the years, I just adopted more and more like customer-centric behavior and process. And like when I write my sales process now, it's the buyer's journey. And, I'm not inventing this, right? Like Bezos is inventing this, and then every savvy company is jumping on board and like putting customers first. But what I'll tell you is for a long time, I was just doing it because it paid back, right? Like this increases my win rate. This increases my conversion rate when I treat people the right way. And I always laughed. I thought to myself, like, am I actually doing right by my customers, or am I just, acting like I'm customer centric to win more deals? Then you wake up one day and you're like, dude, my entire process is customer forward and is here to help customers. And all of my individual contributors are like woke to the customer journey. Holy shit. Like maybe I just did this for myself, but at the end of the day, who cares? Like now we have like a customer obsession culture where we take care of our people. So you could hack it. You could just force it in the beginning, and then over time it'll actually be who you are. But yeah, man, you're not a sales rep. You're a consultant, and you're not chasing revenue. You're chasing the solution to your customers' problems, and you're not like proving ROI. You're actually making your customers more successful. And if you make that your priority, then all this shit goes away. It really does. I love, how do I objection handle? How do I negotiate? How do I whatever? And it's like, dude, just do the right thing in the first meeting and the rest will just fall into place.
It all circles the problem. It's not linear. It all circles the problem, right? Why do you lose in a negotiation? You didn't show value. Why didn't you show value? Because you didn't understand the problem, right? How did I lose on a feature? I lost in a feature because I didn't understand the problem. Why didn't I understand the problem? Because I didn't understand the problem because I didn't do enough discovery on the front end, right? And here's the other part too. Especially with the feature piece, if I do a right discovery and I understand the current state and the future state and the specific desired outcomes, I should know before the customer knows if my product or solution is the best one for them. And if I don't have that feature, I'm not going this far down the road trying to convince them that they can get away with the feature. I just say, look, you know what you told me is, you told me you got 5 kids, you drive to the mountains every single weekend, and we don't have a minivan with freaking TVs in the back seats, right? Yeah. I'm not sure to be a good fit for you. And they come back and say, thank you so much. Or they come back with, hey, I really appreciate you doing that, but all my kids have their own independent iPads. So that's not a problem. Oh, great. Right? Yeah. But I, like Joe said, I'm a consultant. So I'm telling them when I don't think it's a good fit. And it saves me all that hassle.
Yeah. Yeah, and this plays nicely into this slide right here, right? It's when we're objection handling in a competitive arena, it can be so tempting to go back into that product focus because you're fighting against them, right? And it's because you're forgetting, wait, we got to step back. We got to figure out the problem because that's all that matters. The competitor doesn't even matter. Who cares about the competitor? You need to take a step back, stop fighting against that competitor, stop objection handling against that competitor, and get to the root of the problem. Because just noise, just distraction.
Yep.
So, okay, so we went over our kind of coaching program. So we're handling competitors. I think let's jump right into how we make this predictable. We got about 15 minutes or so. So, Joe, I know you've got a formula for this. So I'd love if you would run us through it.
Don't you dare. I don't have a formula for this. I didn't create the sales velocity formula. I'm here to debunk it. I'm not okay. I don't believe it. I think it's a collection of 4 metrics that any legitimate RevOps person should be able to calculate, and any legitimate head of sales should have at his fingertips or her fingertips. But I don't actually think math does anything. And so we were talking about this last week, and Keenan and I had a laugh about it. Like, I'm not actually sure that you can take a quantity of opportunities and multiply it by your ASP, and then multiply it by your conversion rate, which is essentially a weighted pipeline forecast, and then divide it by the number of days in your sales cycle and do anything with that stat. Like, I have no idea what I'm actually using this for. Like, sure, I can estimate, like, how do I go from today to revenue? How many leads do I need, or how many deals do I need, and like, how long is it going to take me? But like, how is this predictability? There is no predictability. Like, you need to look at your pipeline every single month, and you have to look at like very specific metrics about that pipeline, and it changes month over month. And so, like, I guarantee you, if anyone actually did this and calculated it today, waited 90 days and calculated it again, they'd have 2 different answers. Neither one of which are actually like actionable or insightful.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully you didn't tie that number to the board or promise the board that number.
Right.
You're going to be in trouble. Yeah. Yeah. So then I guess the question is, what should we be tracking? What's important to be looking at through the whole funnel?
Yeah. And I think for me, right, there's like a very real way to settle into a forecast cadence. And it's dependent on your cycle, which is probably tied to your ASP. It's dependent on what's changing in the business. But ultimately, you need to use some of the metrics in the velocity model to be able to take your pipeline and turn it into a prediction. But then you also have to take into account, like, what's your marketing cycle, what's your lead to operate, like how active you've been on the phones recently, do you have shows or events coming up, how tenured is your sales team, how old are the opportunities in your pipeline. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. You have to actually, like, and it's different for every company. So I don't get it. I've never understood it. I think you need to build a forecast, right?
Yeah. You need to build a forecast.
I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, look, I see what you guys put up here, and And I like these quantitative measures to evaluate the, I call them the Moneyball stats of sales. Now, I'm sure there's some really quants out there that would say these are useless, but not being a quant, they've served me well so far. Look, if I imagine a baseball card. So Joe, imagine taking all the people at Chorus, right? That, let's say your AEs, because I don't know the SDRs. Let's take all your AEs, get that deal from whatever stage to close, right? And each of them had their average deal size, right? Or ASP for each person on the back of a card. Remember those old cards from the 70s? You flip over the baseball card and it would say, you have all the stats. Yeah, imagine these stats. Imagine hiring people on these stats, right? What's your average deal size in comparison to everybody else on the team? What is your win rate comparison to everybody else on the team? What are the total days in the pipeline, right? So in other words, it's not just what's my average time to close, but how long is my stuff in my current pipeline today? How much is the average of that, right? Then what's my average time to close? I like those two together because if my average time to close is, 180 days, but the average time to close, the average total days in pipeline is 170 and 50% of that pipeline is in the earliest stages, I'm in trouble. I can tell you right now I'm in trouble because I'm gonna blow my average time to close out of the water. I'm 10 days from it on average, and most of my stuff's in early stages, right? Then my next favorite one is new opportunities per month. I don't know why enough people don't pay attention to this, right? Inflow. But how many? I'm sorry.
Inflow. Yeah.
Yes, I don't get this, man. And I should have put you both dollars and numbers, but how many new opportunities am I putting in, and what are those new opportunities worth per month? So what is my average there? So Keenan averages 6 new deals a month for I don't know, 150,000, right? Joe averages 8 per month for 192,000. And that's his average on month. I can tell you Joe's the better rep if he can do that over a year.
Right.
Right? And then that's on the average pipe size at this particular time, which goes back to total days in pipeline. Those are the things that I like. And you play those out over time and you compare them to each other, that's going to tell you who your performers on your team are and what you can expect moving forward.
I'll plus one you here. I'll get really, really specific on why I make fun of the velocity model. I think the velocity model has merit to understand like what type of business you're in. Are you in a transactional business or are you in an enterprise business? Like how should you think about your cadence? When should you get hot feet? Right? What is it? They start patting the ball in the pocket when the QB gets past 3 seconds. Like when should you feel, you need to understand that so you know how to operate, but it has nothing to do with predictability and it has nothing to do with forecasting. It has nothing to do with training. There are 2 things that you should do. One is get like hyper specific and segmentation. So whether it's, like vertical or product line based, or to your point, Keenan, age, right? If your average sales cycle is 30 days and half your pipeline is 3 months old, like, come on, man, that's not real pipeline, and you can't rate it at the same value. So however, everyone's different, everyone's business is unique, but how you need to segment your pipeline and then apply forecasting to it, do that. And then the second piece is, I don't care what software. I spent 6 years in Insight Squared, and I bought it in my second week here, and I stump for it every day. I believe in Insight Squared and Clarity and Aviso and all these guys. Like every company should have like a sales VP accessible pipeline reporting tool. So I'm not poo-pooing the idea that metrics matter. I'm just saying, 1, segment and don't apply generic formulas to your pipeline. And then 2, never, ever get away from the rep call out aspect of forecasting and of predictability. I don't care what the data says because half the data is wrong anyways. One rep creates the opportunity the second they have the call. Another rep creates the opportunity when they feel like they're going to win. One opportunity is with CRO. The other opportunity is with a junior admin. Like cut the shit, right? Stop just using data, right? Segment your data, but then go above and beyond just data and actually talk about the deals and understand if you have a viable business case and a stakeholder team that wants to work with you. Like it's deal specific when it comes to predictability. And I don't care if you're transactional or not. It just has to be.
I want to get to a place. I don't know how I do this because I'm not good at this shit, but I get it. I want to get to a place where I could run a study where on the qualitative side, simply put, how many people knew what the problem was? So within the current state, how many opportunities stated and articulated a well thought out problem and a well thought out desired future state in a gap, and those who didn't, and what's the close rates against those? Mm-hmm. I'd be willing to bet you find a much higher close rate on the qualitative side than you will on the quantitative side.
Yeah, that would be well. When you do that study, please come back on and share it with us, because I'd like to see that too. So Joe, to go back to your point, so are you then saying we need to then start thinking of building forecasting models that are segmented by industry, by title, by all of these different things? Is that what you're doing today at Chorus? Or is it
I have a small team. And I have 2 frontline managers that each run a team of account execs. So we're pretty small right now. We're the classic like rep call out, manager haircut, VP haircut approach to forecasting, but it's at the deal level. And so I might have like 60 opportunities net set to close this month. And so I'm not as much segmenting as you think. I'm taking those variables into account when I do an individual deal review. I mean, when you get up to 25, 50, 100, 500 sales reps, like at that point, it'd be crazy for me to say the only way to forecast is sum of rep call out. So obviously you need some kind of weighting system to do it. So yeah, at that point, you'll know a lot about your business. You're 3 to 5 years in, and you've identified where like the price points are and what the different verticals are and what the different, like levers are. But yeah, it's often contact role, number of people engaged, vertical, deal size, age of the opportunity, rep that's involved, product line. And if you could start to look at your conversion rates and then just apply that filter, look for the differences. Where do you have a 30% win rate versus a 10% win rate? Where do you have a 9-month sales cycle versus a 4-month sales cycle? And then fucking remember that. Right? I mean, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Makes sense. And okay, we got about 8 minutes, so we've got some good questions. But Keenan, so quickly, so we talked about these qualitative measures between, you've got your current state, your future state, you've got the gap. You talked about a few ways. How should people be addressing this gap?
What do you mean addressing it? Finding it?
Yeah. So let's say they found it. What do they do now?
Pitch.
With that information.
Right? like the gap is the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Right? If I have a clear understanding of the current state and the 5 elements, and a clear understanding of the future state and the desired outcome and the intrinsic motivations, so therefore I can quantify the gap both qualitatively and quantitatively, then now what I'm doing is like a doctor. Okay, you told me you can't sleep at night. You told me you've got, pain in your side. You told me you can't eat. You told me you vomit. You told me that, blah, blah, blah. And I've done, and of course we know the outcome. I want to feel better, right? And then I know that I've done some research. I've seen the MRIs. I've seen the CAT scans. I've seen all this stuff. So I know what your problem is. And I know that you're a 35-year-old female with 2 children, young children, you're freshly married. So you want to get another 50, 60 years out of your life. So I know all of that future state. You want to see them graduate, blah, blah, blah. So therefore, I now pitch what I think is the best solution to accomplish that for you. So I don't even know what I'm saying, but maybe I'm going to do a less invasive, or maybe I'm going to do more invasive and get it out of the way. Maybe I'm not going to amputate. Like I'm going to know what the solution is for you based on all of that. So that's when I sit you down and say, okay, understanding where you are today and understanding that you're a single mom and understanding your health with and understanding and saying, here's my recommendation. We're going to do bang, 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 bang. And that's what you do in sales. Understanding you're losing money, understanding you're losing the competition, understanding you can't make this happen, understanding you have no observable moments to see your salespeople, understanding that your salespeople are in different regions all over the country, understanding 80% of your sales force works from home, understanding your average ASP is $250,000 a year, and you've been declining 30%. I'm recommending Chorus now because the only way you can see your sales team operate. There's no other way you can be able to watch your sales team. No, it's not okay to sit and listen to every call as management. That's not okay. No, you can't make them come in. No, you're not going to send your managers all over the country to sit with them. So my recommendation is this. This is how we would do it. This is how to accomplish this. And you break down the pitch or the demo so it maps exactly to what they told you. Not to your features and functions, but to you said this, so this. 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 So when you're done, they're like, oh, snap. He just gave me a customized solution that solves every problem I have.
Yeah. That's when you can just go to battle, right? Because know you are without a doubt the solution that they need. And so you're doing them a massive disservice if you don't step up to the plate and get them to purchase your product.
Yes. You almost make them sound silly for not buying it, right? It's like, oh, you told me this, so let me show you how we'd solve this problem. And they'll usually anchor them. So can you see how that would stop this from happening? Can you see how this would accelerate this? Do you see how this? And they say yes, and you got them. Yes, and you got them.
Love it. Love it. All right, let's go. We got 5 minutes, so let's go quickly to the community. Before we get there, so Chorus is going to be sending out, they've got this awesome guide on film reviews for your sales teams. So anyone who registered for this, we'll be sending that out. So look in your inbox tomorrow, maybe even later today. You'll have that.
Thanks,
all right. No worries. All right. So Q&A. Here's we got a good one. We got a good one from Colin. Colin wants to know, this is very specific, how many hours a week should my frontline managers be spending coaching? Who wants to take that one first?
Yeah, I'll take it. I hate the question, Colin, and no offense, but I think it's the framing of it makes me a little bit nervous that either someone's asking you to do coaching and you think it's too much, or you're asking your managers to do coaching and they won't do it. You're trying to quantify like a punch a clock and do coaching. I'm telling you, man, what's most important is to line up the stuff that your reps need to learn, right? And then set like a regular cadence for knowledge transfer. And so why don't you just start with one routine you don't have right now, like a weekly call review, or like start putting the last 20 minutes of your one-to-one as like a skill development instead of just doing deal reviews. And so why don't you just like focus on one habit and then get the team to lean in, create a bit of a momentum behind coaching, and then start to see what else you want to do too. But pick a skill, pick a format and put it in place and do it on the regular. And then you'd be surprised. Like most of these guys want to learn. Like that's the number one thing that I've kind of been surprised by is these people want to learn. They really do. Like they don't want you to waste their time, but if you bring actual value and you really teach them stuff, like, you know, and then before you know it, if you do a good job on it, you can start having like peer-led sessions and you're training in IC to act as the session leader. And it can really just take a life of its own. Like you could do like three sessions a week at that point, but rather than fill a quota, just pick a skill that's really, really important and do a good job training it. And then, you know, pick another skill and do a really good job training in it. And before you know it, you'll have a rhythm that fits for your team.
I like it. Keenan, anything to add there or pretty much in line?
No, everything's in line. I just want people to understand. If you're a manager, that's your job. I mean, how much time? It's your fucking job. I mean, you're not supposed to sell anymore. You're done selling. So what's your job? Deal review, which in my opinion is part of coaching. So, all right, deal review, pipeline review, making upper management feel better and get off people's ass because they're a pain in the butt. But outside of that, that's your job. That's your entire job. Man, they should change it from managers to coaches. They should literally change the job. So I'd say at least 80% should be spent. Now, here's the key piece that may have messed this cat up. Remember how I do it. Observe, describe, prescribe, absorb, and apply. Right? So part of coaching, to what Joe said, is understanding what I want them to coach them on so I know what to observe. So even though I'm not necessarily in your face coaching, I'm still doing the coaching because I'm trying to figure out what I want to coach you to, what things I want to learn to help you with the coaching. So your job is in the coaching elements, like 80 to 85%.
Right. So if you're not directly coaching, you should be trying to identify those observable moments, prescribing those. Got it. All right. Well, I'll sneak one more question. We got about a minute, but this one's kind of tongue-in-cheek. This is from Lindsay, who I'm assuming has probably seen one of Keenan's more popular videos. Wants to know, Keenan, do relationships matter in sales?
No. No. Look, okay. All right, I'm going to mess with you.
This is the only part of your book I disagree on. Don't do
I
that.
know. So Joe got the setup. Look.
Lindsay, thank you for this. It's going to be the best part of the whole thing.
Yes, they can help. And if the relationship is built on credibility, so yes, it all comes down to how you define relationships. But when it comes to likability, the traditional definition of relationship is being liked. In likability, no, they don't have to like you and use a bell curve. Even if they don't like you, doesn't mean they dislike you. Like only like 10% of all the people you ever deal with dislike you. So stop trying to be liked. Stop telling what school they went to. Stop trying to be their friend and earn your relationship, if you want to call it that, through credibility. Like he said, as an advisor, as a consultant that's coming in and trying to help them solve a problem. And if you can win on that level of credibility and call that a relationship, I'm okay with that.
Keenan, I agree with you that the number one priority is solving your customers' problems for them, and that's what builds the best relationship. But If you don't think that there are bias out there and that we as human beings make emotional decisions and then have selective bias where we decide what data we'll accept or not accept, we make an emotional decision and then we have bias that accepts the data that supports that decision and rejects data that doesn't support that decision. If you don't think that starting a call the right way and building good rapport will open up discovery, I don't know what to say. And so all I'll say is this: I agree, being a consultant is more important than being a friend. But to all my friends out there that have bought software from me and invited my sales team in with you as a result of our relationship, thank you. And I'll continue to do the things that I've always done, customers first. And it doesn't matter.
When if your sales team calls me up and starts trying to sell me Chorus, tell them they had better not start talking to me about the Colorado Buffaloes, and they'd better not ask me about skiing, and better not ask me about my chicks, my daughters, because I don't have time. I'll talk to you about that later. Like, if I like you because of credibility, and I get your vibe, then great, we'll talk later. But don't you dare try to get me engaged by talking about stuff. I got shit to do. Talk to me about how I can save my business. And if you know, I just got a call about that too. What?
It better not be the only bullet in the chamber, but like,
yeah,
it's effective. It is effective.
Yes, but here's why it's effective, because it is the only bullet in the chamber. Like, seriously, do you know what is just as equally, if not more effective? Seriously, though, all joking aside, if someone calls me up and, okay, here's one that I'm waiting for someone to do, so this will be impressive. Gap selling is doing really, really well. One of the challenges that I've struggled with is getting gap selling into networks that don't connect to someone I'm connected to. So I'm getting tier 1 and tier 2 circles, but I know there are hundreds of thousands, not millions of potential people that could buy gap selling that don't go on LinkedIn and aren't connected to people on LinkedIn and don't do anything social. So if somebody called me up and said, Keenan, look, I know your book's doing awesome. I'm watching it everywhere, but I'm curious, do you have a strategy that's going to get you connected to people who are outside the circle of the people you know, the people you know? All of a sudden, I'm in love with this person. Holy, yes. Oh, dude, like, yeah. Can you help me? I like them just because they knew a problem that I'm having a hard time solving and understood that's a hard part of any selling anything from a business to consumer perspective. Yeah, you got me. And I'm in love with this person, in love with them, just because they asked a deep question about a challenge that I have every day that I have not yet to solve.
Which is the challenge is selling outside of your relationships.
Well, yeah, a little step by relationships. No, people know me. Let me phrase. People know me. Yes.
Well, all I gotta say is, Lindsay, I wish you asked this question earlier on in the webinar, or maybe not. But I think we might have to get these two back specifically just to hammer this out once and for all. Do relationships.
I'm just poking the bear right now. It's all up.
Yeah, poke away, baby. Poke away.
I love it, guys.
As long as you don't shoot me in my den now that that's legal in Alaska.
Jeez. All right. Well, Joe, Keenan, gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with me for that hour. You guys are an absolute wealth of knowledge. I've really enjoyed it. And I know everyone who hung out with us today did as well. So thanks again. And if they want to connect with you, LinkedIn, best way? Yeah. Sweet. All right, guys. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and have an awesome rest of your week.